Good evening. We're going to call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. We have a couple changes this evening. I apologize for the way I'm dressed. I'm actually working in a couple minutes. I have to head back out. We're going to take finance and move it number 2 on the agenda. And we're going to start with letter D, 16-17 budget update. So again, we're going to start with number 4, finance, letter D, 2016-17 budget update. Okay. So if everybody has that noted, we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lieutenant, how are you today? Good.
Starting off with finance, Mike.
Sure.
First one there, the budget update.
Yes. Okay, well, the last committee meeting, you recall that I said the budget to give you because we don't have a budget for the state yet. We still don't. But what I wanted to do tonight is just give you a little more concrete idea of where we believe we're at with the 16-17 budget. So the proposed budget, the 16-17, you see we're looking at about $144 million. I want you, on that first column, 14-15 budget, typically we put the actual numbers, but we are completing the audit process, hope to be completed this week, and the next presentation or future presentation will have the actual numbers spent for that 14-15 column. But we're looking at a 3.5% increase over the current 15-16 budget. And what's in the budget, as far as the increase, really, like every year, the last few years, 2 main items. We have the contractual salaries increase, and then of course, we have our Social Security and pension obligations. Pension obligation, the board share of 16-17 is projected to be a little over 30% of salary. Originally, that projection was 29, and they moved it up again. It's not locked. It may go back down. It has changed in the past during this preliminary budget process, but we're not anticipating that. Just a little side note, in 2012-13 school year, that percentage was 12.4%. We're now up at 30%. I also, when we look at this budget, like I said, just for contractual salary, pension obligations, but I also want the board to know that there are a couple areas where we've improved over the years. We're able to get some stuff back in the budget, and what we're able to keep as well in this budget, we do have some money in there for additional staff, if needed, to address class size during the year if things occur. We're also, the other initiative is the replacement of transportation vehicles. We're going to add another round of purchasing for buses next year, in next year's budget as well. All other areas pretty much remain status quo. We've been moving along for the last few years. And there's other accounts from the 300 to 900, so we're going to continue with that. There's no amount anymore. So on the revenue side, our index, as I said last month, is set not to exceed 3.1%. So the numbers you have in front of you is the assumption of going to 3.1% tax increase. On the bottom there, you see that revenue shows a deficit of $560,000. I think it's important to note that when we talk about the school district budget, and I have to be careful with the word balanced budget, balanced in the sense that the revenues that we assumed we would have, with tax increase and appropriation from fund balance, the school district budget is balanced. The deficit that we are still dealing with is essentially the Eastern Area Public Library. That $560,000 is basically their deficit or shortfall in revenue that they request versus their actual expenses. And we'll have to address that. I mean, we are talking with the state, we are talking with the library about ways to reduce that deficit or remove it from the cap. We'll wait at a future meeting to deal with the library to see where that goes. But right now, if the budget that I have in front of you plans for that deficit. So that we'll have to cut, if we don't use that deficit for the library, we'll have to cut our budget $560,000 to balance it at 3.1. So the tax levy impact at 3.1 for school tax will be an annual increase on the average home of about $107. I put the other areas up there. The 2.7 is the base index from the state of Pennsylvania. We always get that adjusted index, and the adjusted index for Eastern is 3.1. And I just put the other numbers up there for just information purposes. If we wanted to go below the index, you see if you go from 3.1 to 2.4, let's say, it's annually a $24 difference. Now this slide, the fund balance review. This slide is a little busy, but I wanted to have the information out there for everyone to see. We're projected, it's not finalized as I said with the audit, but we're projected at the end of the 14-15 school year to have a little over $21 million fund balance in those three areas. And you can see what those three areas represent. What we're looking to do is in the 15-16 budget, we've been talking about security upgrades for school buildings, security upgrades in this building. We've talked about building projects that need to be done. So we're talking about moving money into the budget in 15-16 to address some of those needs. The $1.2 million is the money for the 15-16 budget that we anticipated we would have to appropriate to balance the budget. I will tell you, going back a step, for the 14-15 budget, we had planned to appropriate $750,000 from fund balance. We're not going to need it. So that helps our balance. And as you see, as we get down the projection for 16-17, you'll see that we're going to be back up where we were at 14-15. That's because the last couple of years we have not needed to appropriate the fund balance that we projected. Down below is the capital projects. That was at $11 million that we had that was left over from the borrowing for the Paxinosa project. We borrowed another $10 million this year, bringing that up to $21.5. The estimate right now for the Pax project is around $20 million. So depending on where that comes in, we may have $1 million left over if it comes in. And that's pretty much the summary for now. The timelines, we have to adopt the preliminary budget by May 31st. We have historically adopted our preliminary budget in April, and subsequently in May for the final budget. So we're, at first look, we're in better shape than we did every other year, the last few years, as far as where we're at, opening deficit, and that we feel we're doing what we need to do for the school in having that money there for additional staff, and this is the budget that we're looking at right now.
So something.
Yes.
So 9 million, 4 years ago, we had a $9 million deficit.
Yeah, my first budget here was
Like a
little over $1
$2,000.
million deficit to start the budget.
And what we're looking at potentially, the library has $560,000, we'll assume a $560,000 deficit.
Correct, that's right. At the tax increase,
Right,
at
at the tax-
3.1% increase.
So we cut from 9 million 4 years ago to potentially 560, depending on which way the library goes.
Mhm.
And whether we go to 3.1.
All right, a couple things I'd like to mention. I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Simonetta and Mr. Reinhardt often throughout the last couple of months regarding the budget and Mr. Simonetta's financial team. And they've been really working as they've been doing for the past 4.5 years that I've been here. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge the district's leadership team, the board, the staff, the community for helping to bring financial stability back in our school district. It has been a priority goal for us, and I'm pleased to see that we have reasons to believe that we have met with success. As I said 4 years ago, we began the budget process facing more than a $9 million deficit. It was a little over 9, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Simonetta. Our budget information tonight further affirms that we are nearing our collective goal of reducing spending and eliminating that huge debt. This fiscal news should be seen as a positive throughout the community in that we have brought the district closer to financial stability and thereby brought the district closer to instructional stability. This should be great economic news for our local businesses as well as for our parents. We are hopeful that the days of huge cuts in personnel and instruction may be in the past, and that we are going to be better able to bring financial predictability to our district. This has been the result of hard work, sacrifice, dedication, and creativity by everyone connected to our schools. Most especially, we need to thank the district's taxpayers. Our children have a brighter future now that we have been able to bring stability to our financial house. We are not out of danger yet, as we all must be careful that we seek sustainable goals and contracts in the months ahead. If we do not respect the important balance between revenues and expenditures, we will return to the bleak days of the past. We need to continue to partner with others and seek outside grant support to help sustain our instructional goals. We need to be creative in solving problems and approving contracts so we do not spend more than we receive. We need to demand that our legislators create a fair and equitable formula to fund public schools as well as develop a budget calendar that enables our schools to be able to predict revenues with greater confidence. Having said all of that, there's two things I'd like to mention tonight. Mr. Simonetta, and with the okay of the board, obviously, can we look at, first of all, I'm thrilled that our fund balance is going back up as well as everything else. Can we look at moving some things around, not going to index this year?
Certainly, we actually, as a team, I mean, we're presenting this the way it is, but as a team, we've already started a discussion. And we obviously, I think a big note is that the ability to keep in additional staff for class size meeting, and we don't want to touch that, but we are looking at other areas. So certainly,
Absolutely.
we'll do what we can to come in with that.
See if we can come under, we're doing well. We're doing very well in 4 years. It's still a shame that the taxpayers had to play a major role to help us out, but they did. And I'm going to say what I said 4 years ago, and 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and it's time that we start trying to offer the taxpayers some type of relief. So if we can look at starting to bring that down, I'm not looking obviously at huge jumps, but slowly coming down, working it down to where, something that the district hasn't seen in 20 years, or holding the line steady and no increases in taxes at all, and so hopefully we can look at that, and I want to thank you. I know you guys are looking at it. Lastly, I'm going to ask the board for something. Last meeting, we heard from the community college, who we know is doing a wonderful, wonderful job with what they're doing, above 12th grade. The one thing that's bothered me for years, that I've been here for 4 years, is yearly the community college keeps seeking to increase how much money they need from us. And, you know, it's to the point where everybody is pulling the belt tight, and I don't see that at the community college. Now, they are doing great things, and I applaud them for what they're doing. However, our job is K-12, and educating our kids K-12 and making sure they can get on to the next level. When I was going through the annual report from the community college, I noticed a beautiful community college RV. I looked at the honor roll of giving. I mean, the amount of trustees that are donating huge amounts of money. I mean, it's a great thing. I applaud the college. I would like the board to support Bangor Area School District and try to reach out to Wilson and Nazareth Area School District and say, no increases this year to the community college. We can't afford it. We have to educate our kids here. We have to do what we have to do K-12, and you cannot continue to keep raising it or bringing increases to us. Now, Bangor, you know, came forward and you know, they said we can't do it, you know, and I would like, with the support of the board, to support Bangor, and then hopefully we can get other districts on board. You know, we've been facing a trying time since I've been here in 2011, and the money just, they keep asking for more and more. I mean, they're doing financial things, wonderful things financially. The kids are benefiting from it. And when I look at the amount of donors they have that are just making donations and the amounts that they're giving, I mean, I think the college needs to pull their belt a little tight as well right now and be mindful of the sending districts in the position that we're in. So I would like the support of this board, the majority of this board, to say, well, stand with Bangor and try to get the other sending districts behind us.
Frank, I got two things, but since you brought that issue up, actually, Bangor hasn't seen the budget presentation yet. I think either last night or tonight, or when's their next board meeting, John, do you know? I don't. They will be seeing the budget presentation. And according to their trustee that sits up there, it sounded as though it was all one gentleman, Ron Angle, making that push, and that their board actually has backed off a little bit at this point in time. So you have to be aware of that.
Well, then I will say I apologize if that's the case. However, my position still remains the same.
And I think, you know, as far as you look at it, the amount that we increase, I'm not looking at the dollar amount, but the way that it's put together, for what it does for the community, we have to think about the dollars that come in back to here. And those are the dollars, because every person that, the majority that we educate, when you look at the numbers, are the people that live in this district and pay their earned income tax in this district, which are the dollars that we're getting in from earned income tax as well. So where they may have, let's say, hopefully the people are earning a 3% increase, and we raise our taxes 3%, they're basically at a break even. And we educate the ones that are not, you know, if let's say they've been unemployed or whatever, some of those actually come out and get educated for free and then are helped to try to transfer back into actually working again. So, I mean, we have to think, I believe, take into account all those various things. And the one thing the college did do during the presentation that they talked about is they always try to not exceed what the maximum dollars would be that would hurt the district as far as how their dollars go up. In other words, 3.1 is the max vote for the most in the county. And so on somebody's budget, they made sure they never went up higher than that. In our case, I think, John, the number's 1.9? Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, so there's a lot of thought put into how that number comes about and to make sure it never hurts a district. So you have to be aware of that.
But we are hurting. 1.9 or 2, 1.51 is hurting.
Yeah.
Again, when I look at just the donors, the amount of people and organizations giving over $10,000 or more a year, it's phenomenal. I'm happy for the community college.
But that doesn't go to the college. It's just like here where we have the Easter
Right,
Foundation.
for the foundation, and it goes through programs in the college. So it's just not going to the main, it's being funneled around.
And it actually provides scholarships for our students, and it provides that we actually have some other students out there, some students there that are called ambassadors and everything. And so they end up getting breaks, our students going there from the high school.
When I look at other programs, you know, such as CIT, which is a phenomenal program for Easton. And we truly benefit on the CIT, and when I see them for years holding the line or giving money back, I do feel strongly that the community college could do the same. Maybe, you know, not for 10 years, 15 years, maybe not as long as Dr. Roth and the CIT are doing, but make the effort. You know, give us, you know, it's not like we're taking the money and spending it on new outfits, you know what I mean? We're putting it back into our school, which is important. So I'd really like to, you know, see if we can, I mean, obviously if we vote no, it doesn't mean anything. If the rest of the district vote yes, we're in on it too. And that's why I think we should reach out to some other districts, Mr. Reinhardt. I know we talked about this on that page. Talked to other superintendents and you know, if we can get a reprieve from the constant increase from within the community college, and if the board would support that, I'd like to put some type of resolution together.
Anything else on that? No, I want to go back to some of the remarks there that Mike made. Mike, going back to your budget presentation, I know that last year we had approved, and you mentioned it this year again, some more vehicles into the budget.
Yes.
And last year, when we did approve it, I think in September, October, whatever, you went out with the bid. And I know, the last I heard, I don't believe that we've received the buses or the cameras, and it seemed like things were held up with the Pepin pricing. So
Well, actually,
if we
the
go
Pepin-
out this year, is it possible that we can start that process almost like in April, so that once the budget's approved, we can then start doing the paperwork, and then hopefully receive the buses or whatever by the time schooling
Yes.
ends?
Yeah, it was actually the Pepin process, where it was hung up there for a while, the paperwork, and it came back right before the holiday. Well, you know, just as you brought it up, the 95 cameras arrived this morning down the garage. And you know, if you want to look at the glass half full, that delay allowed us to get 2016 buses for the 2015 pricing before back then. But yeah, there was a little struggle getting everything together, but we can do that this spring once the budget's approved.
Frank?
Yeah, I'll go last if there's anybody else.
Is there anybody else?
Thank you. Based on my previous statement about the community college, and we're not taking a vote obviously, but so we can put together a resolution, I'd like to get a consensus from this board and see if there's enough support, or if there's no support for it, then we'll drop. So, if you want to go around, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I have to remain neutral. Just looking around here, coming down to 3. Any support for putting a resolution together to not fund it this year? Or not? Is it not fund or not pay the increase?
Not pay the increase.
And what is the increase? Do you recall, John?
I want to say 1.9, but I might be
No, not. It's not 1.9 million,
No, 1.9%.
which is only how many thousand?
The dollar increase that we generated from the tax needed is about $48,000.
So the increase is 48,000. Okay. Any support?
Anybody?
I think we need more time you know, to make that decision right now, just without really looking into it. I think we should just take time and maybe come back our next meeting with a decision on it.
Has anyone had an opportunity to go through the budget since it was presented a couple weeks ago? No?
Well, I have, and I would still agree that we may not want to, you know, hit the gas too hard. So might be something that we need a little more time to discuss.
Can I get a commitment that everybody can review the budget before the next meeting?
Frank, are you talking about the board meeting in a couple weeks, or are you talking the next committee meeting?
Well, is it set to be voted on the next board meeting?
That's up to you.
Wasn't it set to be voted on the next board meeting?
It's really up to the schedule of the board, what they want to do.
Yeah.
Well, we can't vote on the next meeting if
Typically,
the board hasn't had a chance over the last couple weeks to review it.
I think we vote on those budgets at the April meeting when we do our preliminary budget.
No, actually, we had voted on them usually right after the presentation. So in other words, like the CIP, by you tonight, there'd be a good possibility they'd be on next,
Okay.
the meeting in 2 weeks as well. But again, fall or a month.
February? Maybe we would have
Maybe
it.
March.
If everybody thinks they can go over the budget and be ready by March, committee meeting for discussion.
and then discuss it at the March committee, and then
Is there a way that we would know what we can cut? We wouldn't.
I mean, listen, 48,000 to them, I don't see them cutting anything. 48,000, that's me. But we can use that 48. Okay, we're looking at for the people that came in late, $560,000 deficit due to the library's deficit. It came down from 9 million. Well, I can use that 48,000, right, and maybe not go to the taxpayers at 3.1%. You know, every little bit helps.
it's not just that. Mike, you had the book over there. What's the total number of the budget increase out there this year?
I don't have Northampton's recalls with me.
Oh, I think, okay.
No, I just have the two of them.
Because it's 48,000 from us, but it could be 100,000 from Bethlehem. It could be, Bangor, I think, is $800.
Yeah, there's also the formula, the delegates and the formula that we have to abide by with the board of directors, which is based proportionally on districts and sizes. So yes,
It's a 5-year average.
so what we need to do, that's correct. So what we need to do is get that information perhaps back to you folks again so you can see it. And we can do that. We do that over this weekend, actually, get that NCC information back. All
I
right?
mean, guys, and I'm not picking on anybody. We'll take the time to read it. But potentially, as Bob mentioned, the next meeting we're going to vote on the community college budget. That's why I brought it up. We got the budget, 2 weeks ago? I mean, I know everybody's busy, I'm busy, but we got to go through it. Because potentially, people are going to vote at the next meeting and maybe haven't really looked at it or digested it. It's really not good. That's how we got in the position where we're at, with people not reading contracts. So I know, people are real busy. I'm busy. If anybody needs to call me and just say, hey, can you update me on something with the budget? I haven't had a chance to look at it. Can you call Mike? Reach out. Use him as a resource. Use Mike, his office. I mean, call somebody. Call myself. Call Bob Fainal. Obviously, he sits on the board over there. Your president's still correct?
Yeah.
He sits on the board. Bob can help you out. But, I mean, we can't vote on budgets and not look at it. It's just, it can't be done. It can't happen. So I apologize. I mean, I didn't know that was going to come up today. I didn't know people weren't really aware of it. But we need to ensure that we're looking at it and you guys are having every question asked, and you need to be sure you're confident in what you're voting on because $9 million 4 years ago. We didn't read the contract. Well, not we, but the contract there wasn't enough time to read the contract. And we're making sure there's enough time now. So there's no excuse for us not to go over it and read it and make sure we're making the proper vote. So just please just read them over before, just read them over. That's all.
Okay. So moving on then from that subject, Dr. Roth, you want to CIT?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present the proposed CIT budget for 16-17. I distributed handouts before your meeting, and we're also able to see it on the screen. What I will do is the same as I've done in previous years, is walk you through the summary sheets, the handout that I gave you, which is a quick glimpse of the highlights of the proposed budget. The actual detailed budget has been sent forward to the business office. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see the detailed budget yet or not, but it is available for you. So to flip to the first page, this is our proposed overview for next year, and at the top you will see the total operating budget compared to the current year, and the dollar increase and the percent increase of the operating budget. Right after that, you'll see the anticipated revenues and subsidies, which also increase proportionately. And so the actual cost to the 5 districts is there in the middle of that first page, $5,860,000, which is an increase of $96,000 or 1.68%. However, as you know, in addition to the operating costs, we do have to add in the debt service for the major renovation project that was finished about 7 years ago. And so close to the bottom there, you'll see the 2 debt services. And so the overall total bottom line there, $8,914. And that is an increase in the cost to the 5 districts of 1.41%. We worked very hard with the superintendents to have the overall cost for the districts as absolutely minimum as we could. And so it's important that you remember that number right there, 1.41%, because as you know, it's not the same percentage increase for each of the 5 districts, and we're going to get into that next. So if we would go to the next, and I kind of apologize to the audience, this is hard to read. This is the spreadsheet that takes that budget and divides it among the 5 school districts. And just a quick review on that is the districts share our budget in 2 categories, or in 2 ways. The very top of this spreadsheet is the eligible enrollment. So 20% of our budget is based on eligible enrollment, meaning the larger districts pay a larger share than the smaller districts for 20% of our budget. And if you look there at the column under Easton, you have 41% of the eligible kids among the 5 districts. Then the next section of numbers is the actual enrollment at CIT over a 3-year average. And that is 80% of our budget. So 80% is based on actual enrollment, 20% is based on the potential to enroll. And that's to try to eliminate the disincentive to send students. The more you send, the more it costs, and it still is that way. But that 80-20 split helps to even out that disincentive a little bit. So 41% of the possible kids for Easton, 36% of the actual kids, and that averages to 37.7% is your share of the budget. And then down below on that spreadsheet, it takes the budget and divides it up proportionately, compares it to last year. At the bottom of that spreadsheet, it shows the beginning of the debt service. And right here, the spreadsheet on the screen is a little different from the one in the handout because of copying. If you have the handout, if you flip to the second page, and I believe, yes, it's up there now, the very bottom line, the overhead does not have the districts. Easton is the second column from the left. It goes Bangor, Easton, Nazareth, Penn Argyll, Wilson, and then the total. With the debt service, the actual cost to the Easton School District is an increase of $120,000 or 4.739%. And again, that's because in any given year, some districts see a larger increase than other districts. Some actually see a decrease. There have been some years when Easton saw a decrease. Unfortunately, I cannot report that this year, that because of a couple of years of increased enrollment, your increase is the larger one. Any questions before we go ahead? Because that spreadsheet does get a little complicated. Okay, then the next page, on the handout, it's a single page with 4 charts. On the overhead, we broke it down into a couple of pages because they're just so small, it was hard to read. So the first one at the top of the handout, and that's up on the board right now, that's the budget-to-budget comparison using the accounting codes that all public schools have to use, and you'll see the increase in each category, and in many cases you'll see decreases or almost an even number. Obviously, salaries and benefits are the areas where you see some increases, and the salary increase line is relatively small. The benefit increases, comparatively speaking, not bad because we've been able to eliminate some benefits. And I'll get into that in a moment. The next slide, and on your handout, the middle is the accounting codes and the percent of the budget that is made up of each of those things. And just like every other public institution, salary and benefits is about 70%. And as you see, the current year and next year, I think the change goes from 70 to 71% of the budget is in those categories. And then the final chart on your page, and the one that's up on the slide now, is the actual analysis of those benefits, broken down into hospitalization, dental care, life insurance, and income protection, and so forth. And you'll see that the overall cost for our school for hospitalization is going down because we've eliminated some health insurance positions, or more accurately, we've created part-time positions from retiring full-time positions, thereby eliminating some healthcare costs. Not a pleasant thing to do, but an important thing that we have to do, and we've been doing that for quite a few years, creating some savings. And you'll actually see there that most of the insurances are showing decreases, other than, of course, the Social Security and the retirement system. Any question on any of those four accounting charts? Okay. Then the next slide, the next picture is a separate agenda item every year is the distribution of unspent funds from a previous year. And as you know, in most years, we've been returning funds to the 5 school districts proportionately based on unspent funds. This year, the superintendents as well as the operating committee of board members is recommending that we distribute the unspent funds from 13-14 in the manner that you see. $91,000 and change going into the capital reserve fund, and $100,000 going into our employee benefit insurance trust fund. We've done 2 consecutive years of $100,000 of remaining funds into the health trust, and that's enabling us to keep our increases for health insurance as small as they are. If we gave the money back, then next year's cost for health insurance is going to be higher. So this is helping us to keep those future increases in healthcare costs down as much as possible. So the recommendation is that we would not return unspent funds next year, but they would be distributed in the way you see in front of you into those 2 categories. And then one more slide over on the overhead, please. Then broken down into the individual districts. This is kind of a bigger look at what we said earlier on the spreadsheet. The change in the cost to the district and the actual percentage increase, your share of the students, your actual enrollment, your share of the budget, where I said 37%, your debt service, and then the bottom line is an increase of $120,000 or 4.71% for the Eastern Area School District. Now, I did mention earlier that it shifts from time to time, and it's important to note that when we look at a 6-year average, looking back over the past 6 years, and you don't have this in front of you, but I'll be happy to give it to you, the average increase for the Eastern School District has been 1.29%. That means that some years, like this year, we're proposing a significant increase, but you had a couple of years with decreases. And again, it averages out. So the 6-year average for you is 1.29%. The 6-year average for CIT as a whole school is 0.67%. 2/3 of 1% increase average per year over the last 6 years. And so I think that demonstrates a very careful use of the funds. Even though the enrollment has gone up by over 5%, I'd like to see the enrollment go up more than that, but we've been able to maintain very close costs, even though we've been increasing enrollment. So that's a very quick look at the analysis. I'd be happy to answer any questions either about the presentation or about the details of the budget. Our business manager, Deborah Miller, is with us tonight, but of course we're only a phone call away any day of the week. That we're happy to take questions either to your representatives who are here tonight or to us directly. Can I answer any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much again, and we hope that you will act favorably when it is on your agenda.
Thank you. And moving on, Dr. Brennan, CIU.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And for the folks that are doing the overhead, I'm going to go to page 8 in the PDF file that you have. But first of all, let me introduce myself. For those of you who may not know me, I am Charlene Brennan. I'm the Executive Director of IU 20 for a decade now. this is my 10th budget presentation. I don't know where that time went. But I will start, before I even get into our general operating budget, by telling you that this budget represents your only mandated payment to the intermediate unit, except for your debt service at Colonial Academy. And we have a 0% increase to your mandatory payment for the intermediate unit for next year. So I hope that's a very positive way to start. Let me start. There are all kinds of introductory materials in your general operating budget booklet that I think you can go through, on your own. I am more than happy to come down at some other time and to a committee meeting or whatever, and would actually invite that, enjoy that, to share with you a little bit more about the intermediate unit than what I can go into today. We are a huge organization. We have 1,400 employees, $200 million in budgets that we manage. We are the 8th largest IU in the state of Pennsylvania, and we provide a variety of services. Most people think of IUs and they think of special education services, but we also do curriculum, professional development, technology services, cyber services, all kinds of things. So again, there is some information about that in the booklet, in the front and also in the back. And again, I would welcome the opportunity at some point in time to come down and share more specifics with you. But let me just put this budget into perspective. I say this every year. The intermediate unit is different from the Career Center and school district budgets in that all of our budgets are separate and they are individually created, balanced, and managed. So we have a separate special education budget. We have a separate budget for partial hospitalization. We have a separate Colonial Academy budget. And again, we have about 45 different budgets. This budget that we're talking about tonight, to put it in perspective, is what we call our general operating budget. It is one of the smallest budgets that we actually operate and manage, but it is very important to us for two reasons. One, it funds the base of our operation administratively, and secondly, it is the budget that the school code requires we bring out to all 13 school districts in the intermediate unit for their review and approval. So with that, on page 8, I just want to jump down to item number 7 first. I probably should have put that at the top. The general operating budget actually funds 4 separate divisions of the intermediate unit. It funds what we call education support services, which is my office and the business office, and that is the bulk of this budget. It funds our human resources department, and it also funds 2 budgets that actually provide very direct services to our school districts, and that is our curriculum services and our instructional material services, or really the newer term is, of course, instructional technology. So this budget funds those 4 departments. And if you're interested in seeing the breakdown of each of those budgets, they are on the yellow pages. I'm going to talk about the budget as a whole, but there are separate budgets for each of those 4 departments. So, going back to the top, we are recommending an IU general operating budget of $3.3 million. That's an overall budget increase of 2.9%, or $94,990. And I would point you to item number 3, number 2, which shows that almost 50%, not quite 50% of that $95,000 is for pension obligations, a mandated payment. We are recommending an increase to the school district withholding amount of 0% again this year. I think, although don't quote me, I think over the last 6 or 7 years we've had 5 or 6 0% increases to that withholding amount for you. And we do try to keep that amount as low as we can because it's your only mandated payment. All of our other services you use and pay for as they are needed or necessary, or as you see value in those services. We are budgeting, on item number 4, 2.4% for administrative salary increases and 2.1% for support staff. There are no teachers in this budget. The teachers and those types of support staff are all over in the other budgets. This budget is mainly administrative staff and support staff in terms of secretaries and those kinds of things, payroll staff, and so on. Those budget salary increases are estimates only, and it's the actual numbers will be based on average increases from our 13 school districts. Healthcare, we are budgeting at 2.8%. That's following a minus 5% last year. Knock on wood, the IU is having very, very good health care experience, and we've been able to very much control costs through our EdTech Health Trust. Item number 6, to balance the budget, we have eliminated a part-time van driver position, and as you see on our budget by object code, there are many line items. Some line items were increased where we needed funds, and others were largely decreased. But again, we balanced it out with no increase to your mandatory payment. And then finally, item number 8, you will see in the budget by object code 2 salaries that stand out. We, through the IU board, did a reorganization back in June that has really benefited the IU, and I think as you reorganized recently, there were some one-time salary adjustments for 2 positions to reflect their new duties. So with that, let's turn to page 10. And I'd like to just very quickly review the revenue with you. We are expecting no increase in interest, of course. The receipts of the IU sources, those are revenues that we earn through the selling of and purchase of our other services like special education and so on, and or contracts that we get from places like the Pennsylvania Department of Education to provide curriculum services. The EdTech Health Trust contributes about $160,000 to this budget. At least it doesn't participate in the Health Trust, so you don't really want to have to pay for management of the Health Trust. We manage the trust on behalf of all the districts. And so they contribute to that receipts other IU sources. And you will see of the increase, $59,000 is money that we actually expect to come in through contracts with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Small increase in Social Security, no increase to our administrative offset from the state, of course. We can't, just as you can't anticipate anything with the state right now, neither can we. We are taking revenue. We still have for retirement a reserve account, and it still has some dollars in it. And over the years, we've tried to build pieces into our fee structure and then take some money out of the reserve account so that our retirement increases, which are the same as yours, were pretty much gradually increased rather than us having to hit you all at once with our retirement costs. This year, we started with taking 80% out of the reserve account and building 20% into our budgets. And then over the years, we kind of changed those percentages till this year, we're taking 50% out of the reserve, building 50% into the budget. Next year, it'll be 40-60, and so on until we have all of our retirement built into our budget. So that's how we graduated it. So that our districts do not have a huge increase due to our retirement. And then as you can see, the support by withholding, which is the direct contribution from the school districts of a $3.3 million budget, is $532,000, just shy of $533,000, and we have a 0% increase to that revenue line item. And then on page 10, you see how we take that $532,000 and divide it amongst the school districts. We do this based on a formula the state gives us, which I believe is on page 13 if you're interested. But the formula takes into account your aid ratio in relation to the other school districts in the intermediate unit, and it also takes into account your weighted average daily membership in relationship to the other school districts. So Bethlehem, of course, being our largest, contributes $108,000 of the $533,000, and the smallest is Penargil area with $11,000, just shy of $11,300, And you can see Easton there. You are listed number 5, the 5th one down. Your contribution is $54,543. On page 12, you have our budget by object code, where we pull the 4 individual budgets together and we just compile it all. And you can actually go down to the net change in the percent column. I would just caution that some of the line items may have like a 200% increase, but it's only $400. That's because the line item is a very small amount to begin with. So any increase to it shows up as a huge percentage. The salaries, we budget 2.4%, but it's a pot of dollars. And so that gets divided across the staff based on how far above or below an average salary they are. So you'll see various percentages there, but in the end, we're budgeting 2.4% for salary increases. And if you just want to walk down, you've got retirement at 20.4% increase. Legal services, we did include a large increase for legal services. That is not for our retainer or anything. That is actually an increase that we need to the human resources budget for union types of things like grievances, arbitrations. We found that we just did not have enough budgeted as far as legal fees for that. And if you continue, you can see we made some 30, almost 40% cut to travel, supplies, some of our utilities we cut significantly. Of course, we cut the part-time van driver position. In the end, it balances out to a $94,990 increase, of which almost 50% is retirement, and we will earn the remaining amount that we need to balance this budget through contracts that we are expecting, and they're pretty much assured through the Department of Education for the statewide system of support that the intermediate units provide. The next couple pages are some pie charts, and it breaks down salaries, benefits. Of course, over the years, we've really cut other line items in this budget, so it is very heavily comprised of salary and benefits. I will stop there, and I am absolutely willing to answer any question that you might have on this budget or on anything from the intermediate unit.
Just one question.
Sure.
Is every IU multi-budgeted, or is it a choice that's made by this one? Or?
No, every IU. Yeah, and the reason for that is actually, I guess, the rational one. It's not just the way the state handles IUs, but I think, people said, you may not participate, I'm just going to use an example. You may use our special education services, but you don't want to use our partial hospitalization services. So, that's
Correct.
Colonial Academy is separate because some districts don't even participate in Colonial Academy. So that's the reason for it. And I think in the end it does make a lot of sense because then you're only, except for this budget, which is the shared contribution from the districts for the basic operation, you're only paying for services that you actually use.
Sean and I have a question about that. So you did some reorg and increase in salaries, but were there some cuts that were made during that reorg? Was there any positions that were cut that might have?
Well, what we did was we didn't, I'm going to try and do this with my hands. We had our Assistant Director of Business Services, and then we had our Fiscal Director. And when we reorganized, we created a department called Management Services and added to that department transportation. They had only been the business office. Now we added transportation, building and grounds, child accounting was moved in there. I'm missing one. Oh, technology. And so when we looked at that, the fiscal director now was actually, his responsibilities were very equivalent to our other assistant executive director. So what we did was we moved the fiscal director to the assistant to the executive director position to oversee all of that. we took the assistant business manager to oversee the business office. So he became the business person, and we didn't replace that other position.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes?
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your support.
Moving on, the last item, again, is Mike, with your infrastructure upgrades.
Yes, just this is what I put out was the results of the bid for the infrastructure upgrades. We want to offer it to Integra One. You can see how they complied with all aspects of the bidding, and I believe that the discount will be 60%.
Yes.
So that 93,000 that they bid on with the E-rate discount will cost us 40% of it. So I presented this at a previous committee meeting. I just wanted to show you the results and that we will be putting this on the agenda to award the bid to Integra One in 2 weeks. If there's any questions, Mrs. Stebbins had an answer.
And are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item E then, and that's the public to be heard on any of the finance agenda items.
Hello, my name is Ronnie Delvaco. I already filled out the paper here. I wish that Frank were here to hear me say this, but he sounds like a Tea Party guy. I really have to encourage you all to take Frank's word and heed his idea to put forth the resolution to hold fast on not increasing on NCC. That $48,000 definitely would be helpful. As a taxpayer, a homeowner, I really appreciate that Frank brought that up. Please pass that along to him. Also, when you're considering these budgets, I notice there's a lot of time put into them and great work done by the people who present them, but not one shred of evidence or proof that any of it is producing academic progress. There's no students here to testify that the program's working for them. All we hear is just flowering, well, they're doing a great job, they're doing a great job, they're doing a great job. And all these programs, when I'm selling a budget or I'm trying to sell something as big as these numbers are, I would hope to at least be able to present to you some promise or progress or show you why it's working and how it's working. But not one of these budgets has done that academically. And I think there needs to be a lot more academic discussion when you're considering spending the money that you're talking about spending. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening on finance items? If not, that closed summary is, bottom line, on next week we'll have the infrastructure upgrades on the budget. And John, I'm not sure now, based on that earlier discussion, are we going to put on the IU and the CIT budgets for next meeting, or are we going to hold
Certainly,
them on until...
again, I look to the board for direction. If you're comfortable with that, we can do so.
I have no issue with putting them on for, and we'll just hold the community college budget until March.
Until March. So these two will go on next week?
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. There's no more comments. We'll move to academics. Back up.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to go first. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. I have three updates. Shouldn't take too long. I wanted to review with all of you where we're at with professional development for the middle school and the high school, grades 5 through 12. We've been focusing our efforts on the depathing and excellence through equity. As you all know, that's one of our district initiatives. And the high school and the middle school administration have a common interest, obviously, as all of our schools do, K to 12, to ensure that all young people receive an education that allows them to cultivate their talent and potential. Obviously, that's our goal for all of our students. At this time, what we've done with the detracking and the excellence through equity, as far as professional development is concerned, the high school and the middle school are investigating and planning on how to make necessary resources available through scheduling for the students and the teachers, while also discussing the challenges and barriers to attain the excellence through equity. We all know that there are challenges and barriers with this. It's not going to happen overnight, so
we have to look at the long term, and that's what we're working through and providing our staff with the literature and the research as well. So I actually brought the book that we're using, which is called Excellence Through Equity, and Mike Huck and I went to a school improvement workshop with the Department of Ed, and this was provided to us free of charge through these trainings. And the gentlemen, Alan Blankstein and Pedro Noguera, are the authors of this book, which actually provides a lot of research on schools that have done this across the country, talks about Sweden, Finland, etc. So right now, we're focusing on chapters 3 and 11, which is detracking, and actually Abington School District, which has gone through this process, which is at New Philadelphia, very close to us. So without going into a lot of detail, that's what we're doing with the middle school and the high school. I provided the middle school our demographic data, K-12. It's very interesting when you break down our demographic data in this school district. We're almost at 50% poverty rate in our school district. We have a lot of students okay, it's very alarming when you actually look at our numbers. We also broke down our numbers, our percentages in our classes at the middle school and high school. So there's a big disparity with our high-level students in their their race as compared to our lower-level tracks. So, looking at all this information and to see it in black and white is very alarming. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our students. Detracting at the middle school and high school is actually placing our students at the middle school level in the 5th grade in lower level tracks and not really giving them an opportunity at that young age to show what their potential is. With the research and the literature, I wrote a couple of things down. We actually have neuroscience research that we're going to be looking into. This neuroscience research actually shows that students are born with innate abilities, innate intelligence, and those students will rise to the top. We have students in poverty, with a lot of issues from their environment that come into the school and may not have access to all of that our students with higher socioeconomic status do. Does that mean that their brain is stagnant? No. If we allow our students to be placed in these higher level courses and have the opportunity to perform well because they work hard, work ethic, and telling them that they have the ability, they can grow. The neuroscience has actually proven that in these studies. We have students, obviously, that are going to do well no matter what, and that's a given. So we need to take a look at that and say, what can we do for our students that are tracked right now in 5th grade in the lowest levels? Is that fair to them in 5th grade? And then that tracking goes all the way through 12th grade, and they're not actually put in or allowed in other higher level courses. So that, in a nutshell, we need to take a look at our system, and I know that the United States is looking at all of this, and what's fair to our students in our school district. So that being said, that's what we're focusing on for our professional development in February and March at the middle school. The high school is taking a little bit different approach. They're actually presenting this information to the coordinators. As you know, we have a lot of teachers in our high school, so we're breaking it down by coordinators, and they are bringing this information back. The high school has a little bit more time to develop this whole process. We are taking a look at beginning our process of detracking from the 2016-17 school year through the 2020-21 school year. As our middle school students go up into the high school, we are actually dropping a level in 9th grade from on-level classes. We're looking at taking that off and going to college prep and honors for 9th grade. And next year it would be 10th grade. So there's a system in place that we're taking a look at. Nothing is defined in stone, but this is what we're looking at. I just wanted to put that out there because I know that there's a lot of conceptions and questions about detracking. So I don't know if any of you at this time have questions about that. I wanted to just kind of present, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions.
I actually have a question. Great job. I think that's
Thank you.
Fabulous. I'm so excited that we're taking this initiative to help everyone have an opportunity to grow.
my only question is, as you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
are there going to be resources available for these students? Because the worst thing I want is somebody to have to go
Right.
backwards and not have those
Yes.
resources available, because
That's
sometimes it
correct.
might take them a little slow.
Absolutely. Right now, at the middle school level, we're looking at, we revised the schedule, placing a 30-minute block of time every day after, it's actually after first period. It's like an extension period for those students who are not actually meeting the mastery of their courses, like in the core, English, science, math, social studies. So they can actually go into it, like a remediation, I won't say remediation, but it's an additional time to bring them up to speed, let's say, in the areas that they're weak in those academic courses.
And who's going to run that? Are teachers going to run that?
Yep, absolutely. We're trying to look and see, and again, this is all work in progress, but we're looking at pairing up our teachers with their students in that time period that the students are having difficulty with. So we're trying to make sure that those students can actually be matched with the teachers in those classes.
And is there an opportunity maybe to reach out to some high school students that could help?
For tutoring purposes,
Yeah,
sure.
get them involved and
That's part of the area where students need mentors. And I didn't want to go into a whole lot of detail, but yes, we need to look at the students that don't have those opportunities at home or the resources available to them, and provide mentoring, tutoring, after-school programs. As you know, we were granted the 21st Century Grant, and that provides 4 days a week of after-school programming, which includes tutoring and mentoring. So yes, absolutely, we have to look at the supports for the students as well as the teachers too. A lot of differentiation things that the teachers are going to have to look at, and it's a scary endeavor. It's not easy. Anything that you read on this endeavor, it's difficult, and leadership is the key. We have to stay the course and actually research. Provide the information not only to our teachers and our administrators, but to our parents. They're our stakeholders. They need to understand why. Why? We are not getting rid of honors tracks in the middle school and the high school. So that I know has been out there as well. We're looking at all students will be provided a college preparatory class as well as an honors class. We're also looking at open enrollment. If a child who is in an one-level class wants to try that honors class or that AP class, why would you prevent that? Unless there's really some litigating circumstances that just the child would not absolutely succeed. Then you'd have a conference with the parent and the child. But why would you continue to say no because you didn't meet our requirement? Allow that child to at least the exposure to it. And you know what? If they don't get an A or a B, if they get a C and they're doing the best they can, wow, that exposure to an AP and honors class for that student means a lot. And they can gain a lot. And that's the neuroscience that is in this research that I've read about as well. So,
Thank you. Awesome.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Sure.
Let's turn this on. I guess I understand that we're comparing to Finland, and this is what they're doing as far as the excellence with equity and stuff like that. Some of the research that I've done for Finland, one of the things they looked at, the main things they looked at was decreasing class sizes and increasing their staff. And from my understanding is that's not changing for us, so that's a major concern to me.
That's a concern that we don't have. Yeah, it's a concern that we have to look at. You're right.
I'd love to get the book too. But
Yeah, I can get that for you. You're right. I mean, we do have in some of our classes at the middle school, not so much. I want to say in particular at the high school, it's class sizes can be very, upwards to 30 in the honors classes.
So my other part too is being back on and being new again. Not quite sure if the tracking, and I've heard the parents at the last meeting having concerns that when we talk about bringing them in and discussing this with them and explaining it to them, are we going to be doing that at some point in time to have it at a meeting to go through all of it? Because that's...
I know at the PTA roundtable, actually tomorrow that's one of the topics, and we have discussed it on other occasions when we meet with them monthly. That is one group of parents, which we know that they go out to the PTAs and they explain that. I don't know that that's getting to all of our parents out there, though.
No, and I think that's something we need to put on as being a topic to discuss in front of them and give them an opportunity to voice their concerns.
Yeah.
The other concern I have too is, so for the middle school, we're talking about doing that for 2016-17, correct?
2016-17, we dropped, yes, let me just tell you that we did drop the essential class. We have, 4 levels: essential, applied, college prep, and honors. For our regular, that's our regular track. We dropped the essential, we now have applied, college prep, and honors. Okay, that's this year. That's the 15-16 school year. Now next year, we are dropping the applied, and it'll be the college prep and the honors classes. And Ms. Weiss had pointed out, you have supports available. We have built that into the schedule, 30 minutes per day, for support for the students that may be having some difficulties.
Okay, so we're dropping the applied and we're going to have college prep and honors. So I guess I go back to the question, like I said before at the last meeting, is we're changing the requirements. So are we, and I hate to use, are we dumbing down the curriculum to call it college prep and honors? And how are we changing the requirements to get into those classes?
Yeah. I hate to say dumbing. I
don't like
want to
using
say
either.
using dumbing down the curriculum.
No,
I know.
if
Go
I
ahead.
could,
Sure.
we're not dumbing it down, we're opening opportunities for all kids. In fact, it should be just the opposite. And if you take a look at what it is that we're trying to do here, it is far beyond the whole notion of it is almost an ethical or moral issue for us that we have to stop making decisions about kids in 4th grade that are going to impact them in the rest of their lives. For half of our kids, those decisions are probably very positive and very good. But for the other half of the kids who don't necessarily in 4th grade do well on a test, those opportunities are probably not good. And they're probably limiting them to what looks like something that has always happened here, and that is limited opportunities for learning and exploration. And we have collectively decided that it's really time for us to deal with this and move on. It's more of a process, if you will, than it is like flipping a switch. Feeling what we're doing may not occur. That may not be like all of a sudden everybody will sense the detracting next year. I don't know that that's really the case. Our classes will feel differently. And for some kids, my suspicion is that for the first time, they're going to see that other peers can help them learn, other peers can motivate them to learn, and that being in school can be something more than what it used to be. The other week I had a long conversation with students from the high school, and this was long after we embarked on this journey. And one of the things that those kids discussed with us was the different expectations that staff members have of kids in various tracks. And I thought that was very perceptive of them to bring that to our attention, and courageous as well. And so we left there thinking, or at least I left there thinking, this is the right thing to do for all of our kids. Now, the challenge is to try to get our staff members the skills and the resources to deal with a more varied class of learners. And there also has to be a motivation to do that, and that's what we have to do as well. And this notion of, it depends on where you look at this idea of detracting kids. I happen to look at it that what we're doing is opening up opportunities for everybody, and we're not limiting kids to various levels and tracks. That has to be a tremendously enriching opportunity for us to move learning to a whole new level here. It should be the opposite of dumbing it down, if that's what you wanted to call it. It should be just the opposite, and I hope it is.
John, can I just add to that? When we roll this out and you do start speaking with the teachers, it is really going to be how they perceive it and how they understand their next step. Because if they don't feel that, first of all, I don't even want to use the word dummy down. We are moving everyone up to where they really should be, where they should be learning, and inspiring them to want to learn more. So I don't even like that dummying down word. But the teachers need to make sure that they put on a positive, united front in the classroom and outside the classroom. Because if they go in and they start saying that, I have kids that in the class that can't keep up to speed, that's not what we want. We need them to be positive about those and maybe keep it. We have a couple students that need to go to that lesson and I don't want to say do it, quietly, but they need to make sure they keep a positive frame of mind, because it could be frustrating for them.
And absolutely, and we are having professional development on the 22nd of February for the middle school teachers at this point, because they're the ones that are actually hitting the ground here, running with it. And we are actually asking them what their concerns are, what the positives, what the negatives were of the dropping that essential level, what are the challenges, because you can't just come in and expect them to just do it. They need to be educated, and we need to hear, as the administration, at the building level and the central office level, what are going to be their concerns and stumbling blocks, so that we know what to provide them, resources that they need to be provided.
Well,
you're
some
right.
of the classes, they may have to restructure the way they teach
Absolutely.
a little bit. I
Yes.
mean, in history, you can't just sit there and teach. Sometimes telling the story is the better way to learn. And so those students that we're bringing up that maybe aren't as book smart can really learn the material and understand it and learn it.
Right.
Not memorize it,
No,
learn it,
right.
and have fun with it based on how it's getting taught.
So, and it's not going to be perfect next year. It's not going to happen overnight. It is a learning process for all of us, and that includes, all of our stakeholders, not just our teachers and administrators, but our parents, people in the community. So, yeah, it's a challenge, but, I think we try to meet that challenge.
Well,
Julianne,
yep, no, I'm sorry. I just wanted to,
Okay.
because this was one of the things that I had a frustration with when I was on previously. We did. As soon as they hit 5th grade, they were tracked, and they got stuck. At one point, we changed where once they got to 8th grade, they had algebra. No matter what level they were, that got changed because we were talking about the same thing. The concern that I have, again, is when we talk about the resources that we have and what we're trying to implement, one of the main things that you do, any research that you do on this, it is increasing your resources for your teachers and the resources that you have and lowering your class sizes. And we're not talking about doing either of those. The other concern I have is we're talking about implementing this, and one of the other main things they talk about is the teacher preparation for it,
Right.
and the training of it.
Mhm.
And to me, I'm concerned that we're only taking a year to do this and implement it. So those are,
It's more of a fast track at the middle school. I agree. The high school, we have more time to, mull this over and research it and roll it out. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Reinhardt, the middle school was the focus to try to, to get it started first at the middle school because we have such traffic
Right. Right.
there. And, that's why it's moved at a faster pace there. But class size is, that's a concern. You're right.
No matter what we do and when we do it, this is going to be a transition in philosophy and a transition in the way we organize our instruction. And I guess you have to sit back and say, well, if we're truly going to offer a equitable opportunities for all kids. If that's who we are, and that's who we should be, and certainly that's the kind of country and community we want to live in, then there's really no purpose in sitting and waiting for an event to happen. We need to move in this direction and do the best we can with it. There's no question that the class sizes will be an issue. They're an issue now in some places. We'll do the best we can with it. But I think for all those parents of kids who are coming to school, one of the best examples I can say that might help to clarify this is that savvy parents were aware and have been aware that a test that determines their child's next 3 years or more, that test has been given in the district. Other parents who, for whatever reasons, who may not have ever had that information, didn't even know the test existed. Point being that there were parents who, rightfully so, gave their kids the opportunity and set them up for success and preparation for that important test, where lots of other kids' parents didn't do that or couldn't do that. And ultimately that is inherently inappropriate and unfair. So we're going to try to challenge our very best and brightest, but I think all of us have agreed. Every year when our scores come out, I hear from people, we need to do something different, our kids need to achieve more, and this is a leap in that direction. We are changing the way we do things because we don't want what we've always got. We want kids to achieve more, and we believe this is the way to go, at least one step in that direction. And we'll do the best we can to support people. We don't have all the resources, but I have to believe in our hearts, not only our administrators, but our teachers certainly believe in the rightness of what it is that we're attempting to do.
One last thing.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, and I'm
Yeah.
glad to see it also because I think it is an issue.
Yeah.
But I'd like to have some type of an idea of how you plan on assessing that we are progressing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
How are we going to determine that by changing this, we have progressed?
Like, I guess I would say, well, like we've always tried to determine whether we're succeeding or not by the evidence, that rise in test scores, the number of kids engaged and involved in classes, in projects, activities. There are pretty obvious ways that we can determine whether we're...
I'm just saying also, because I know one of the things too, in Finland,
Yeah.
there was, one of the things they took away was the standardized testing.
Yeah.
So we're still, have to adhere to that. So
Right.
it's just another issue that we have to deal with. And so I'm just trying to make sure that based on what we're doing, how we're
Sure.
assessing that we're progressing.
Right, and
Yeah.
I think she brings up a great point because we can assess that through our grades and look at what we've done in the past and what our student grades were with all of these levels, different tracking levels, and then putting our students in college prep and honors only, and how many kids are actually doing well, succeeding in them, compared to these kids failing or doing poor, getting D's and F's. So that's the kind of stuff that we need to look at. That is the data. That is part of all the studies in this book and in several other books and research information that I've reviewed as well as looking at our PSSAs and our Keystone exam results. So, you are right that we do need to analyze what the results are. And that's not just standardized testing I'm talking about. I'm talking about grades in each of these courses, take a look at that. And that can't just be 1 year, it has to be over multiple years. Good questions, thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions on that? I just have 2 quick updates. That's okay. Science curriculum realignment. I just want you to know that the revised plan of instruction for science in grades 6 through 9 will be presented at the March AIE committee meeting. I'm actually going to have the curriculum alignment presented as well as our textbook adoption for 9th grade physical science course. That is actually a new course that I've been updating you on throughout the course of last year and this year. I will provide you information. I'm not going to ask you to prefer it in a zip file. There's a lot of curriculum documents that you need to see. I want to provide that to you for as far as what our changes are in the curriculum grades 6 through 9. Or would you prefer hard copies to look through that? Okay, that's what I figured. I just want to make sure. Okay. And then the textbook adoption, I will have 9 textbooks, actually 12 textbooks, so you can all have a look at what the 9th grade science teachers are presenting. And I will have some representation from our teachers at the high school that evening, as well as our middle school coordinator as well for science, so we can explain the changes and why again. And I'll have that all written in for you, and we'll do a shorter version of all that. Okay? And real quick, we were provided the opportunity from Dr. Kristen Lewald from the PBOS statewide director from PDE. She's offering one-on-one support to our administrative staff, which will happen this Thursday. It's free of charge, and it is to the largest LEAs in Pennsylvania, which we are. So we are providing free of charge this one-on-one tutoring training with our administrators on Thursday to show us how the PBOS growth in our teachers, the scores that our students get that are attributed to each teacher, and how that will affect their evaluation. So that's a huge deal, because that now comes into play with our new teacher evaluation system that has been handed down from the state of Pennsylvania. I just wanted to give you an update because that is happening on Thursday. Any questions? I didn't mean to take that long, I'm sorry. But thank you, they were great questions, I appreciate it. Thank you. You're welcome.
So Ms. Piazza.
Actually, I'm going to defer.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. The only reason we're doing this is because we have 2 teachers that are patiently waiting to present what I'm out of here. So I don't always have the opportunity to highlight some of the wonderful things that our special education teachers are doing, the programs that we have within the district. So tonight I wanted to have the opportunity to present the Bridge program, which is a fairly new program up at the high school that is supervised actually and overseen by Jillian Broadhead, who is also here. She's the supervisor of special ed for 9 to 12. And she has been working with 2 of our wonderful teachers at the high school who have really taken this on and developed this program really from the ground up. So I don't want to do all the talking. I want them to highlight what they've been doing for you. So Becky Vaccaro and Kathy Lane are going to come up and present.
Good evening. We just want to share a little bit about a new program at the high school, and it's called the Bridge Program. It stands for Building Real Independence and Deriving Genuine Experiences. And this is for our special education students, and it's helping to bridge the gap between high school and the world beyond high school.
We're going to go over as briefly as possible. We have a lot of information about the program because we are very excited about it, and I'm very honored to do this program. The first thing is Kathy just explained, that we are a new program that offers direct instruction and hands-on opportunities to prepare for life after high school.
There are 3 main areas of focus. One of them is independent living. This includes social skills as well as students living on their own. Second section is employment. That ranges from everything from how to fill out a job application to learning job skills to obtaining independent employment. And the third section is post-secondary education. For any of our college-bound students, it helps get them on the right path to finding the college that is right for them, keeping them on track with taking the assessments, filling out applications, securing the student loans, things like that.
This year, because this is a new program, we've made great strides already, helping our students prepare. We've taught them some job skills, vocational, and independent living skills, and we're going to kind of highlight what we've done so far. Our first class is the community outreach class. Kathy and I are able to teach that together, and it's a wonderful class. Our students are loving it. They learn and apply vocational skills to provide services to our community. We've listed a lot of things that our class has done just in semester 1, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. Some of the things I haven't highlighted was Bracedale Pen Pals. We actually reached out to Bracedale Nursing Home and secured about 12 patients and residents to become pen pals with. Our students are writing to them. They're currently doing a Valentine's Day project for them. Both seem very happy, the students and the patients. And we also have tried to reach out for teacher appreciation. We baked everybody cookies and put them in their mailbox. Just little things in the community that they can start small. And then Kathy headed an Animals in Distress. She's going to discuss.
Community Animals in Distress. We contacted our high school staff, and they very generously donated towel sheets, blankets, things like that for the shelter. The students then took those items, they sorted them, they laundered them, folded them, counted them, boxed them. And the purpose in doing all of this was beyond going through a community service type project, but actually teaching them marketable job skills. Any of those skills could relate to the hospitality industry, retail, any areas where they're doing that type of folding, counting, organizing.
Our community outreach class also made over 35 bookmarks to donate to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. You're aware that the children are very sick, so they don't do a lot other than stay in bed and read. So that was one thing that they do accept. Our students loved doing this, and it again helped them with skills that they really truly need. Sewing. We have a picture, if you want to. Of the bookmarks they made. And then we have, there's a couple students that they were actually, they really not all are able to take pictures. We also, this is the same community outreach class initiated through Crayola Factory Color Cycle program, which the students collected dried out markers, any kind of markers, magic markers, dry erase markers, any marker, highlighters that were put out bins, they advertised, they wrote letters to the principals making sure it was okay. We wanted to make sure that they know every aspect of the community outreach when you do start to contact community people. Crayola Factory will then take it and recycle it into clean fuel. It is something that Crayola Factory does. So I think some other buildings in our district have done it too.
And we think it's really exceptional because it is something happening in our community. So they can make a connection because a lot of them have already visited Crayola Factory and they can make a connection there.
Within our program, we also, other than the community outreach class, we have a jobs transitions class. It's very important for us to teach our students vocational skills that they can actually use in a job outside of high school. So this is what this class does. We've done a lot of things so far. A couple of things you can... This is the kids prepping for the bonfire breakfast. The high school obviously has our annual bonfire. The teachers that sleep out usually have a breakfast offered the next morning. And our students were able to prepare, set up the tables, put the silverware out, do a lot of that stuff, which would help with marketable skills again in down the line for a job. And they loved being part of that Easton tradition. We also, starting next week, are rolling out a rolling rover coffee cart. To the high school staff, our students will be learning how to take an order, fill the order, deliver the order, handle the money, all of the transactions that will require, and our teachers will get some coffee that they desperately want, and it kind of balances out. Everybody's very excited. It will, again, the marketable skills that our students will be able to put on a job application that they've already have practiced. And we are branching with Chartwell's, our food service company. They are overextending themselves to let us do some stuff within the cafeteria giving us gloves, and they are supplying all the coffee, so that is already, I mean, the teachers have to pay for it, but everything that they have is ours, so it's great connection. We also, in the same class, have paired with communities in schools. They have a huge clothing closet that is abundant of donations that were in need of some organization. So my students, my job skills students, our job skills students, sort, hang, label, organize, inventory all of the clothing. Eventually we would love to have a great space where it looks like a retail store and people can come in and kind of shop. And it is for the students that are in need of clothing, especially within our community and service program. But they learn all of the retail skills that we want them to be able to go to Walmart or Marshall's or a different business and say, yes, I do know how to inventory clothes, or yes, I do know how to hang and sort. I do have a couple pictures. Sorry, I know we're taking a lot of time here. So that's them inspecting and folding our clothes. That's the makeshift closet we have right now. I was being as resourceful as possible. And we also offer clerical and courier services to our teachers. If they have a big job that they sent downtown to get photocopied, our students will take that big job, collate, staple, count, and deliver. And again, this is working out for everybody. Miss Cassis uses us a lot, which is great. And some other teachers from science and math have asked us to fill orders, do all that kind of stuff, as well as our special education students are able to take the stock that the special education department has and deliver it to our teachers. So if somebody needs pencils, envelopes, paper clips, we take it out of our stock. They learn how to inventory it out of our stock, deliver it, get a signature on demand like they would as if they were serving in another realm. I have some pictures. Those are the most recent job we did for Miss Cassis. Again, they're counting. I think it was PSAT booklets. They love that. So.
Okay, next section is the social skills. And within the social skills class, students learn verbal and nonverbal communication. They learn to recognize facial expressions. They learn about proximity and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. For some of our higher functioning students, we look at situational types of things such as relationships, how to get along with other people, anger management, how to express yourself appropriately, making good choices, learning about consequences, things like that.
Our vocational skills is a preset for our job transitions. We're learning all of the pre-vocational skills in preparation for future employment. So before they get to the job transitions class, our goal is for them to learn how to find a job, apply for a job, fill out an application, even explore what kind of job they'd want. That was the first semester we did all that. I have a career portfolio where they've actually filled out applications and they did mock interviews. And now we're on to banking. So what to do with their paycheck once they get a paycheck, how to set up a bank account, how to pay bills, how to write a check, that kind of stuff. All in preparation for future employment.
Okay, and then our post-secondary education, we have another teacher who is involved in this part of the program, and she really works one-on-one, small group with students who are interested in going to college, teaching them what they need to know in order to apply for college, find a college that suits their needs and their interests, and just keeping them on pace to meeting their deadlines and goals. The independent living class, we're learning skills in there that will help the students to live independent of their parents, teaching them basic cooking skills, how to launder their clothes, how to clean up after themselves, some minor household repair like changing a light bulb, plunging a toilet, things like that, personal safety, basic first aid, knowing their own medical history. You'd be amazed how many kids do not know what the medications that they take are for. And going along with what Mrs. Vaccaro is teaching, we also talk about personal finances and budgeting.
finally, we do have a future vision. This is only the first year that we're rolling this program out, and we have a lot of exciting things that we would like to work on. Our community outreach gardening, I think we're actually starting that this second semester.
We are in the early stages. We have secured a piece of land that we're going to be using for the garden. We've reached out to some community members and have gotten some definite interest in helping us out with the program, and we're on the path there. What we would ultimately like to do with the garden is we would like to, first of all, be able to take produce from the garden to use in our independent living classes, and then any surplus that we have would go to Second Harvest Food Bank. So again, we're reaching out to our community, trying to get the kids to understand that there is that symbiotic relationship, that they should be reaching out to their community rather than just accepting things from the community. Another thing that we're looking at doing long term would be getting the kids into community field trips, teaching them how to go grocery shopping on their own, teaching them how to utilize public transportation, teaching them how to go to the bank by themselves, use the public library, things like that.
We're also looking into, I've already talked to Chartwells, and again, they're very cooperative with our students, applying and filling out maybe some co-op opportunities within the cafeteria, which would be a helping hand for both of them. They could use the help and our students could learn some skills. We've talked about doing our courier and coffee cart in other buildings in the district, not just the high school, so that students can then learn and apply, eventually get out into the community. We have lots of ideas. You could go on and on.
Right. And then the very long-term goals, some of our students, once they progress through all stages of the program, once they progress through all stages of the program, getting them out in the field with a job coach to give them actual job experience and hopefully employment. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Great job.
Mr. Castrovich is going to, help me pass out a few things. Allie had given it to you earlier, but we found printing errors. I want to give you a fresh copy. A couple of things I want to talk to you about this evening happening in the elementary realm. One, Mrs. DeVitro mentioned the PVOS opportunity that the high school staff is participating in. The administrative staff on Thursday, our elementary staff is participating in that tomorrow, weather permitting. That will include all 7 of our elementary principals as well as our intervention staff. We'll have an opportunity to meet with the state to look at our PVOS data and learn a little bit more about that as well. So that is happening. I also want to take a quick opportunity to mention kindergarten registration again. I want to make sure I'm saying that every time we have the opportunity for public to hear that. That is coming up starting on March 2nd through March 11th. It is school specific. So if you know anyone who is turning 5 on or before September 1st, we encourage you to reach out to the school. And if they don't know which school, they can certainly call my office and we will point them in the right direction. But we want to get the word out so that we get as many kids registered prior to the beginning of the year as possible. The 2 larger things I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this evening are the elementary report cards, and then a little bit about the 5th grade remaining at the elementary school. Mr. Castrovinci just gave you 2 drafts, a K-2 report card and a 3-5 report card. And then he also gave you a little brochure, and I really need to give huge thanks. It was a committee doing this work, and I'll kind of share those details, but graphically, Mrs. McIntyre put all this together and is still working with me every single day when I say, can we tweak this, can we change this? So she's been tremendous help, so thank you. The little one that you see, the brochure, just to give you a quick overview, this is obviously just a quick mock-up for 1st grade. There will be one for each grade, so K, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I did not include any information in this yet Our teachers are still working on that, so I didn't have it typed in yet. But basically what this brochure will provide is something that our district offered a number of years ago, which will give you in a snapshot what to expect when your child is in a given grade. So for example, when they are in first grade, what does it mean when we talk about numbers and operations? So under that bullet, you will see things like patterning, one-to-one correspondence with numbers, so on and so forth. So each one of those boxes will then give you a quick snapshot as to what to expect in that grade level per year. The same opportunity for our LAMP, our Library, Art, Music, and Phys Ed will be there. And again, we didn't tweak this back message yet, but something along those lines where you see the 1, 2, 3, and the final back page will be a philosophical kind of message from my offices as to what we expect teaching and learning to be within our school district. So that will go out at the beginning of the year, as well as at our first conference time, so that parents make sure that they have an opportunity to know what questions to ask. So coming back to the report cards, a couple of things to note. This is a dramatic change in some ways, and not so much in others. The dramatic change is that we are moving away from the 1, 2, 3, 4 grading scale. What is not changed is still a standards-based report card. However, the reason we felt this brochure was important to follow is because our report cards previous, or that we are using currently, where it says numbers and operations, which will now be marked or graded, there used to be subcategories under each one of those. So the teachers were grading maybe 7 or 8 things under each of those areas. That will not be the case. Their grade will encompass those 7 or 8 subcategories, which is why we thought it was important to make sure you know what those subcategories are. So for example, our students will be graded in mathematics. They will receive a grade for numbers and operations, for algebraic concepts. If you're in K1 and 2, your grade will be in the middle box here on the first page, where it says mastery, mastery, progressing, limited progress, or not taught yet, not taught at this time. One of the things that we grappled with, and that you probably heard as a board over the years, every year we were talking in the first marking period in particular, can we gray in a block, can we ungray a block? And so they're going into the grading marking period not being quite clear on what they are or are not grading. We felt very strongly about not having to worry about what we're grading in and not grading in. So these categories that are here are what are prescribed within our within the SAS, the PDE website, as the Common Core umbrella topics. So when you see numbers and operations for a K1-2 student, they will be graded on a mastery or progressing, limited progress, based on how well they've done on those subset of skills that fall under each of those categories. The other thing that you'll notice that is new to this report card is we eliminated an area that used to be called characteristics of a successful learner, and we added it under each content area as effort and conduct. So an example of that, and that will all be spelled out as well, an example of that is effort are things such as participates in class, does their homework, I'm trying to think of an example. Just my brain went blank. But those things that are showing that, yeah, I have no effort going on. Those things that are showing that they're engaged in the lesson. They're listening, they're participating, they're raising their hands, they're cooperative with their peer in a peer group, they're doing their homework. That would be an effort grade, and that would be marked using a consistent, sometimes, or needs to improve. A conduct grade would be more a behavioral grade. Are they acting appropriately within the classroom? Are they taking care of their materials appropriately? Things that might fall under a behavioral category. So each area, and we did debate this back and forth, whether it should be under each curricular area or just once, like it currently is. And there is varying opinions on that one. I would say if there's a varying opinion on anything, this is the one. But in the end, we decided to try it this way because we thought that it would give us some good information. If we see that a child has good effort in conduct, but their grade is maybe a little bit lower than we might have anticipated, that'll tell us that as a teacher we may need to change how we are presenting material to that student. If we see that effort and or conduct is poor in a given area, then maybe it's more about the relationship with the child as opposed to the actual teaching of content. So we thought, at least the initial run through, our hope is that, obviously after first year you always find little things you might need to tweak, that after next year we're done tweaking it, we're living with it, and I really anticipate very little tweaking, to be honest with you. But for the first year we thought we would try it and then decide if that's an item that needs to be tweaked as we move forward. Other big change in K-1-2 to note is that we took science and social studies off the report card as separate categories for grading. However, and I do have a statement on here, that does not mean we are no longer teaching science and social studies. That's a very important piece to recognize. In this brochure, science and social studies will still be laid out. There will still be an expectation of teaching and exposing to science and social studies, but we are looking to do it in a more cross-curricular manner. We have found that in our primary grades, most of those topics can be and are being taught through our math and or language arts blocks anyway, so we wanted to integrate those programs into those areas and not get bogged down in a separate grade for them. So that is a dramatic change here. The other dramatic change you're going to see, regardless of whether it's K-1-2, 3, 4, 5, and I will talk a little bit about 3, 4, 5 as well, is that we moved to a trimester. And I know we mentioned that briefly when we did the calendar, I think it was last month. That decision really was a suggestion by our teaching staff that probably rolled off the shoulder at first and then came back to the forefront as we really started thinking about the possibilities and reasonings for that. One of the reasons we chose to go with a trimester is because we wanted to have more teaching time before we are reporting out on student grades. We all know that at the elementary level, we have benchmark times of years, September, January, May, when we're doing an abundance of assessing, DIBELS, fact fluency, so on and so forth. We wanted to make sure they were capturing true teaching and learning and giving a 60-day marking period as opposed to a 45, where 2 weeks of that is really testing and assessing. We thought that would give a better perspective or picture of what students truly are learning, being taught and learning at that time. The other piece there is we are proposing that we do conferences one time formally, and that would be in December. I know our newspaper kind of reported that we would be having less contact with parents based on that one-time conference, and the hope really is just the opposite. In our old system, with 2 sets of conferences, one in November, one in March, April timeframe, it was assuming that every child and every parent needed to be seen at that same given point in time. We are going to make that assumption for December because we're just getting to know students, first time that parents really have a formal opportunity to sit down without having to make that appointment on their own. But we are expecting that teachers recognize the fact that kids learn and develop at different paces and points in time. And there may be times that they need to see a parent in January and somebody else in April and somebody else in February. So we didn't want to necessarily say it has to happen at this point in time. It should be happening very fluidly throughout the year as requested by a teacher, parent, or student. So we don't believe that there's an ill effect to not having a scheduled conference time because we're expecting that it happens regularly. The bonus to that is we will be capturing back some of those half days that we were currently sending kids home to run those conferences. So that would only be happening one time a year. So we're in essence capturing back 2.5 plus days of instructional time. So that is a big change as well. If you look at the third through 5 report card, it is similar to what you saw. By design, we wanted it all to be very recognizable as the kids are going through each grade level, with the biggest changes being science and social studies are added back in. And you will note that in the middle section here where it says grading scale, there's a place that says percentages. For our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students, we are going to give them a percentage grade as opposed to that 1, 2, 3, 4 in the overriding category. So in mathematics, their umbrella grade for mathematics is a 82. That 82 was comprised of their mastery, progressing, or limited progress in those sub-skills that were sent there. So they'll get a percentage for the overarching content area and still follow that K1-2 system of mastery, progressing, or limited progress in the other area. Now, I mentioned that we added a not taught at this time in lieu of coloring in blocks. We felt that was important not only for continuity of learning, so the teachers knew what they were expected to be teaching without having to worry about us changing report cards, but also for the fluidity of student learning, because there may be some students who are able to learn a particular concept or skill that might not traditionally be taught in a given trimester or marking period. So for example, one of the pieces of feedback that I heard from many of our 3rd grade teachers is, can we color in geometry for the first trimester? We don't teach geometry in the first trimester. And that is true. And for 97% of our students, that block may say not taught at this time. But there may be 2 or 3% of students who can handle that and have been exposed to that, and a teacher wants to recognize that with a grade or some kind of comment. So we're leaving that open as an option. Any questions on that so far? No, I did that pretty quickly.
I do have questions.
Sure. Okay.
First of all, I do like the breakdown of the categories and how your fundamental skills and the reading informational text. I think that's a way better plan. It's way more informative and helps the student to grow and progress in a different way. My question is, though, on the limited progress. I mean, I'm going to hope that somebody's really going to watch those areas, especially on the student. Again, we're going to try to change something in 5th grade. This is going to be critical to hit some of this information with the parents, giving them the tools and the resources they need at home. I know that's hard, but we have to offer that to make sure that we're in line with it.
So some of the things that I failed to share with you. In addition to what you're seeing here, we are also working on, and I will give you the complete package as it's totally finished, in final form. The other thing we're working on is a checklist that was really, in our initial inception, was meant for teachers to list all those ancillary skills that fell under each category. But as we started talking, that may also be something we want to be sharing at our conference or at reporting times with parents as well, to say, here are skills that we've currently taught, and here are the skills that need to be taught as we continue through the year. The other piece of this is really the education piece, not only for parents, but for our teachers as well. So we will, again, as we kind of finalize this in the next few weeks, make sure that we are doing some public conversations about this. But one of the things that the teachers will have from my office, and it was collective from them, from administrators and so on, is kind of the protocols and expectations for completing the report card. One of those expectations is that if a student is receiving a limited progress, limited progress, anything less than a 60th, it's a percentage, or a needs to improve, that 1, parents are contacted, and 2, as that is occurring throughout the grading semester, that all of those pieces prompt a reteach, reassess component. So we really are not expecting, not because we are not allowing teachers to give failing grades, but we are expecting, if we are doing our due diligence and a student receives a grade of 60, that a teacher will recognize the fact that their teaching of that particular skill for that particular child is as much in question as the child's learning. And therefore, a reteach, retest would need to come into play. With that, then, we would be looking at two options. One would be to eliminate that first grade altogether, or secondly, combining the first and second, so there's a more active reflection of the growth that is made over time. So that's one of the protocols that are in place. The other thing that I really should share with you is that there was an overwhelming response by the teachers, a positive response by the teachers, to move in this regard. They heard me say it, at various meetings from time to time, but I don't think really had a vision of what that might look like. If I'm being very transparent and honest, I was going to take select groups of people to share it out with, and I chose to share it out with the entire staff. And it was standing ovations. It was my emails are overflowing with thank you. It's about time we made some of these changes. I'm sure there are tweaks and things that may need to be looked at, but overwhelmingly the staff is supporting the need for change with our elementary report card. The other piece that we wanted to try to be cognizant of is currently our 5th grade students do have a percentage grade under just that umbrella category. So we wanted to make sure we were capturing some of what that flavor is, as well as melding it into what we expected in elementary school.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would even go a little step further and say, forget the 60% or the D. You might want to even do it a little earlier. C- is
right.
Sometimes make or break someone
Sure.
that can grow and develop.
Sure.
This is awesome. I really just want to say, I know we had a really big budget conversation today and how great that is looking, but academically, I got to give kudos to John, you and your administration, putting the right people in the right job and changing our dynamic here. Kudos. Great job.
And I will say it's certainly not a 1 or 2 person job. In all cases, it was a staff effort. Feedback back and forth. But thank you. Any other questions on report card?
That's like the changes.
Thank you. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about, and I know people are chomping at me in a lot more detail probably than what I can give today, is what 5th grade will look like when it comes back to the elementary school. Our teachers want to know this as well. And we're not withholding information, trust me. Trying to roll this out as quickly as can, but with lots of thought, kind of problem solving all the pieces before it gets rolled out. So, as you know, at our 5th grade currently at the middle school, most of our teachers are teaching a subject. So they teach science, they teach math, they teach reading, so on and so forth. At our elementary levels, they teach the whole gamut. Homeroom teacher teaches every subject, heterogeneously grouped. When we move to this reorganization, we're going to have some schools that have 3 teachers in 5th grade by population demographic, some schools that have 4 teachers in 5th grade, and some schools that have 5 teachers in 5th grade. One of the challenges in my own head, and as we talk as groups and I get feedback, is we want to have some continuity for our students and our teachers, regardless of whether in a 3 school, a 4 school, or a 5 school. So that being said, the way to do that best is to have our 5th grade teachers teaching all content areas. However, we do want to have that middle school transition when they go back to 6th grade. So we will be looking at having students cycle or share teachers, if you will, move to a different teacher. Most likely, let me back up, definitely in the areas of science and social studies. Potentially in other areas, but definitely in the areas of science and social studies. One of the difference being, because part of our expectation is that we are giving opportunities, equal opportunities to all students, we will not be homogeneously grouping those kids. So when they are cycling to another teacher, it will still be heterogeneously groupings that move to a different teacher. So the exposure is that exposure of different teaching styles, different personalities, accountability of moving down the hallway and getting there with the proper materials that you need, those types of transitional experiences all under the umbrella of a heterogeneously grouped group of kids, which is what we currently do at the elementary school at all levels. That being said, there are opportunities within our schedule. Right now it's called the IE Enrichment and Intervention and Enrichment Block of Time for students to receive some extension opportunities within their own homerooms or cycle area or remediation if so needed. There obviously will also be the full gamut of opportunities through special education services, enrichment services, and everything in between for our students. We are looking to have the same opportunities in terms of enriching opportunities such as band, chorus, those types of things, still available to our 5th grade students when we come back. So that's kind of the quick highlights. I guess the biggest message is that our teachers will be needing to teach multi-curricular areas. And when the teachers are coming back to the elementary school, they will be teachers who are certified to do so. Maybe not as comfortable as they were a few years back, but certainly certified to do that. The alternative to that is in one school, it may look like somebody is teaching reading and somebody else is teaching math and somebody else is teaching science or social studies. Certainly open to opinion and suggestion, but I think at this point in time, trying to keep continuity across our schools for all kids, it was to make sure that it was the same in all schools.
I'd be worried that if a teacher has taught reading or has taught math, that they just don't be heavy in that. I mean, you want all the students.
There are real pros and cons to doing the other way, and particularly for areas like, well, in all disciplines, there are certainly people who are interested in better at science than they are in social studies. The problem being in a 3, 4, and 5 system, it's very challenging to have continuity across all schools for all kids, all teachers. But that's where my brain is right now. That's where all of our conversations across different subpopulations of conversation is right now. Regardless of how we slice it, there will definitely be multiple curricular areas for teachers. But as I stand here today, it will probably be all curricular areas.
Is there an option for those 5th grade teachers maybe to get together as a team, a whole team, and ones that are better at teaching, more comfortable teaching math and science, and maybe kind of, maybe do like a workshop type thing for teachers?
That's a great idea, and I think right now we will definitely need to be doing some in-servicing for our staff that come back from the middle school. Based on their certificates and based on the years of attrition and having to move folks around, I'm going to bet that most of them have had some elementary experience, but may have been out of that for quite some time. So we are going to have to do some staff development there, for sure. The other piece to note is we did do a survey. This is Amelia's office sent out a survey for all staff to share with us where their desired teaching assignments would be, whether we can grant all of that in year 1 or not, but it certainly gives us a place to start thinking about where their comfort levels are and their desired skill sets are, as well as any other feedback that they wanted to share with the district. So we will look to match as much of that up as possible. But again, lots of transitions for folks that we know won't be easy, but we strongly believe it's in the best interest of our children, both academically, socially, emotionally, to come back into an elementary frame. Rachel, any other questions on that at this point?
I guess we're going to be talking about this more later on then.
We definitely will. That's kind of where we're at the moment. Report cards, I will tell you, are pretty much there. We have some of that ancillary work still to do, but it's almost in a final phase. This piece here, we still need to talk a little bit more as an administrative team and make sure we're fleshing out all the pros and cons of that type of system. But what I can definitively tell you is that teachers will have to teach more than just one subject. Minimally 2, most likely 3 or 4 when they come back to the elementary level.
I think there's a great window of opportunity, and you mentioned staff development. I think that maybe the existing elementary teachers should be involved on this, so they can give any input that they have. They might say, been out of the elementary game for a little while, so to speak. You may want to give this a try. This is working. So I think that when we are putting together those staff development pieces, as you mentioned, we just are going to want to include full staffs and not just the transition.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Okay, any other comments?
Hi, my name is Michelle Robertson. I'm president of Area Council PTA here for Easton. I first want to say, listening to everything tonight, I'm very proud to be a parent here at Easton School District. There is so much good effort and good work being done. And I don't think that all the folks here around the table do it enough. So thank you. One quick thing, and we've had discussions, I know with the administration team, Mrs. Mealy in particular, with regards to using or utilizing council to help facilitate some of these Q&A discussions. The district has so much good stuff on their plate right now. I know it's kind of that perfect storm. It's all kind of come to a head and it's all kind of happening at once. Because we are the advocacy group for parents, we'd be happy to do that. And even so much, I think the academic tracking is probably going to be the one where there's probably the most Q&A there, even helping with kind of a communication plan. Let's put a memo out, and then, set up, time down in the westward south side, out in the suburbs, et cetera, because it does affect everyone. And then for the fifth grade, grade 5 and reporting, doing an update possibly just at the PTA meetings. I think we could do that in a more intimate setting. One thing I want to just point out, because this was, Mr. Reinhardt talked about this test that's administered in 4th grade and how it tracks the kids through their senior year. I was not aware of this test, and I think of myself as a pretty in-the-know parent. The way that I have described this to folks, because I've gotten many messages, email, private messages, is it's an antiquated system. It's a broken, antiquated system that really needs to be changed. And it puts almost every level of student at a disadvantage. You've got folks that, go to the higher level and they're struggling consistently. So it really kind of works both ways. So I'm excited. I think there's good effort being put around this. But I kind of want to I think when it's explained, if you take a step back and talk about where it came from, I think it'll help with the conversation. I think people are instantly hearing, well, there's levels going away, there's tracks going away. Well, time out. This is where we're coming from. So I just want to offer that as a suggestion. I know we had a roundtable meeting with Mr. Reinhardt. It probably took me a good 20 minutes of, I have no idea where we're going. But then it dawned on me, it all boiled down to this test and how we were basically, the trajectory from there out, it didn't make any sense. So if I could offer a suggestion with that. And I think that's all I have, but thank you, great job.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to say that I'm really excited about hearing what's going on in the special education department and the Bridge program. I think it's wonderful. And I'm also glad to see that we're moving along on the getting kids back into 5th grade, back into the elementary school. There's a lot of good stuff going on also. Anyway, so in summary, we had the K-12 updates and the update to special education, and I guess we're going to be continuing to talk about the tracking and also the report cards when they come out as a final draft. And that's it.
Okay. We're going to move on to policy.
In the absence of Mr. Miller, I'm going to reflect over to our superintendent for direction.
Sure. Thank you. We have, as you know, undertaken over the past several years, we've tried to undertake a systematic review of our policies. One of those policies that we have on the docket right now is the policy regarding searches. And we have been looking at this and conversing with our solicitor on this policy now for quite some time. but we have some fundamental differences in our in concerns about the policy and the wording of the policy, and I'm going to ask our solicitor if he could share his thoughts. I will say to you that as a district, we need to look at a search policy that's not specific to locker searches, but addresses appropriate searches based on reasonable suspicion. Items such as individual personal belongings or vehicles as well. Those are all pieces of our business, if you will. I've had conversations with Mr. Romali, who is here, who has an interesting perspective on it. And I guess what I'm ready to say is that we don't have the policy wording finalized to present to you tonight, but we do have an opportunity, I think, to share some of the language changes that our solicitor thinks we should consider. John?
Yes. Well, what we've submitted is quite comprehensive, as Mr. Reinhardt points out. The current policy, number 226, is pretty much limited to searches involving lockers and that type of thing. Frankly, does not really adequately cover the breadth of potential searches, not only searches that are individualized, but also searches that are random, some of which are permitted by constitutional law, dog sniffs, those kinds of things. And the policy that we submitted here is actually one that is basically drawn from another district and modified by my office to make a stronger statement, particularly in the more invasive areas of search. The entire structure of the proposed policy is really based on longstanding constitutional law, a case called TLO versus New Jersey. TLO basically stands for the principle that searches of students must be based on reasonable suspicion, which again is something less than probable cause. But those searches must also be reasonable in three areas: reasonable in their inception, reasonable in their scope, and reasonable in their method. And the proposal that we've made, I guess the language really is not available to everybody here. It's set up very, very differently. But every area of search that this policy deals with, including individualized suspicion searches, searches upon consent, searches, locker searches, searches of the person, and so forth, are all predicated on this basic constitutional law concept that was set forth in TLO. And the notion, again, is search must be reasonable in its inception. In other words, there's got to be some reason to start the search. The search must be reasonable in its scope. That is, you can't look for an elephant. You can't look at a bread box for an elephant. It's got to be something that where you're looking has got to be a place that something contraband could be reasonably secreted, and it's got to be reasonable in its method. And that means obviously that it cannot be overly intrusive based upon what the concern is, what the contraband is that's being looked for. And so that really is the entire structure of what we're presenting, all based on that constitutional law. I know it's come to our attention that there was a relatively recent case for these things. School cases like this don't come up that often, but there's an example here in this 2009 case at Supreme Court involving what was called a strip search, which was basically a search for contraband in the form of ibuprofen. And in this case, ultimately, the court held that a strip search was inappropriate, where the female student in question was asked to hold out the elastic parts of her underwear to see whether anything was in there and so forth. And basically what the court did in this case is it applied those same principles in TLO, I forget what it's, 1970-something case, saying that, if you balance what the risk is for ibuprofen against, against the intrusion, this was not a constitutional search. It doesn't really set forth any new principles, but it takes that same reasonable step, and it's a step-by-step approach. Each step of the search, as it becomes more intrusive, has to meet all the elements, has to be reasonable, and what you're looking for, it has to be reasonable in scope, it has to be reasonable in method. So that's the design that we presented. In addition, we have made some suggestions with regard to the most intrusive searches, which of course would be so-called strip searches, and then strip search doesn't really have a specific definition. But in the particular case of this Safford case, the 2009 case, Supreme Court was satisfied that that's kind of a strip search. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to remove clothing. But one of the things that the language that we're suggesting enhances from other policies is that those kinds of searches are really a last resort. That one of the considerations and requirements before a strip search is undertaken is that the immediacy of the danger, and I'm reading the proposed language here, the immediacy of the danger to the student is so great that the search by administration cannot await arrival of the student's parents or law enforcement. Now, if you take this 2009 Supreme Court case and you substitute heroin for ibuprofen, there's no question in my mind that they would have found this search reasonable. That's why we're recommending that our policy not contain a blanket ban. In fact, the Supreme Court has not held that the strip searches in schools are per se unconstitutional. What they've done is to go back to this TLO standard and look to whether or not they are reasonable, again, in their inception, their method, and their scope, and of course whether the danger to the student or the student population outweighs the interest of privacy. And so that basically is the basis for our suggested language, and again, it follows throughout the entire policy, which is entirely different than the existing policy. So I encourage the committee to look at it. I don't know what the entire board even has there.
Well, Sean, since we don't even have the language, we're not going to really be doing anything with this until next meeting. So this was just
an opportunity. We've had, there was an interest on the part of a resident in the community to want us to review this. I want to make sure that the board knows that, we heard that request. We are reviewing it. We're going to revise it and look at it through different lenses, and that's what we're doing. So we'll present this to you next month, and with the language offered to the board to see how you feel about it.
Any questions from anybody on the board about what we just heard? Hearing none, do do we have any comments from the public on the policy conversation that we just had? Please sign and state your name.
Good evening, it's Tom Campione, and I am Vice Chairman of the Lehigh Valley Tea Party, and I had my address before I'm done. Back in August of 2015, sent a letter to the school board president requesting review of this policy, and actually was not even afforded the courtesy response to that letter, which I'm rather disappointed about. But I'm certainly pleased that this body has taken up that request. I'm not going to go through the entire letter, but I did include some language that I would like to read for the board. Searches involving removal of clothing or examination beneath clothing. No district employees. This language that we proposed. No district employees will involve themselves in searches of students that involve the removal of clothing or examination beneath clothing. In the event such search is potentially necessary, the building principal or designee shall contact the blank police department for their involvement in the matter. Additionally, parents, guardians will be notified immediately of the intent to search. Limitations on searches involving the removal of clothing or examination beneath clothing does not foreclose the search wherein a student is asked to remove jackets, coats, shoes, or other outerwear wherein the student would remain fully clothed. So the points of that we were trying to make is that there are really two components to this. One is, should a search be necessary? We're asking that that search be conducted by uniformed police. Yes, it does mean that it must rise to the level of probable cause, but we think that that is certainly reasonable to request probable cause. The other component is having parents notified. As is, parents do not have to be notified. It could be 2 weeks later before a child, or ever before a child discloses to their parents that in fact they were subjected to a strip search. In the case referenced, that'd be Reading versus Stafford Unified School District, the young lady who was asked to pull her bra and underwear out was a 13-year-old girl. They were searching for Tylenol, prescription strength Tylenol. Reference was made, well, if it was heroin, I think it might be more immediate. I'd ask, are your school administrators prepared to deal with a situation such as that and make that type of decision? Oh, well, we'll do it if it's heroin, but we won't do it if it's Tylenol. The law is extremely gray. The risk that you are taking by allowing your administrators to conduct these searches is grave. The expense to the taxpayers would be, I think, an embarrassment if nothing else. Should you incur such an incident? And we're suggesting that you take a very, very strong stand, write the policy, make it clear, no strip searches. If it's necessary, go to the police and notify the parents. Thank you.
I'm still running the buck. I'm not going to be as nice as Tom was because I have a 15-year-old daughter in high school, and I have a 25-year-old daughter who graduated from Easton. I want you to keep your hands out of my daughter's pants. Plain and simple. I want your teachers to keep your hands out of my daughter's pants. I want the administrator to keep your hands out of my daughter's pants. I want the principals to stay out of my daughter's pants. You have girls, Mr. Obi? You have daughters? How do you feel about that? I'm sure you want them to keep their hands out of your daughter's pants too. Mr. Vonderberg, I know you don't have children. Well, let me tell you, when you do, and you hold that little child, and then she goes to school and is well taken care of by people like Miss Piazza, who I admire highly, by the way, you're not going to want them to put their hands in your daughter's pants either. If they suspect something, you can object to it all you want, because if it's your daughter, you wouldn't object to it. And when your kid does go to school like that, then you're going to want a strict policy. A harbinger where you should be the First Amendment loss that you had on the boobies bracelets, the I Heart Boobies bracelets. Went all the way to the Supreme Court, cost the district and the taxpayers a ton of money. How would you like a Fourth Amendment fight? A Fourth Amendment fight because a teacher decided he was going to be a sleaze or slime baller for whatever reason, forced the issue and decided he's going to search a student. That doesn't need to happen. If anybody in this room, and I know you've ignored my question in email twice, so I'm going to ask you on the record here in the meeting, is anybody in this room okay with an administrator or a teacher or a school staff strip searching a child? The silence is deafening. You're okay with that? The ambiguity in this policy needs to be tightened up.
I'm going to recommend it. I'm not going to statement so that just for the appropriateness of the conversation.
The appropriateness of the conversation would greatly change if a student was strip searched. So the appropriateness of conversation can be as inappropriate as it needs to be to get the point across. If you think it's okay to remain silent and not make an answer and not take a stand on strip searching children, then you just sit here quietly. But I would recommend that before a lawsuit is brought on Fourth Amendment rights and a student's rights are violated and you're in it for millions of dollars again, that you strongly consider strict language, not the nice fancy lawyer language that Mr. Friend has recommended. Put it down that you don't want our children strip searched. Make it plain. It can be clear. If there's something in their underwear, it's not going to be an immediate threat to another student. It's going to take a while to get to it. You can call the police, you can have it done right, you can call the parents, and their Fourth Amendment rights won't be violated. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's tough to debate this when we don't have anything in front. I mean, it's really not worth debating. I would hope these people come back once we finally have a document that people can read off of and then know exactly what's being said, because until then, I have nothing more to add to this either.
I think that we need to respect this as an initial conversation as it was presented to us by our administration. And once we do have the paperwork in front of us that we see necessary, we can then make the informed judgments that will need to be.
Just if I could, for the record, I've been in touch back and forth with Mr. DeBacco now since I think August or September. I've asked him for his patience on this because we've had a lot of priorities, a lot of issues that have happened in the school district. He was very reasonable about that. I don't want it to be characterized that we have not responded to his inquiries, because we have. This conversation was moved up on our priority list because of Mr. DeBacco's concern. I think it was in October, following a letter from him, I gave all of the administrators a directive, and that directive stated that no personnel should be strip searching any children. Now, I didn't feel there was a need for me to remind people of that, because I have to tell you that with just very few exceptions, none of our administrators would want to take that step without having parents or police in the room. And I think our administrators value their jobs and value their roles in school far more than that. But I will say to you that most of what has been expressed, I think, has substance and value, and you'll see in the policy. But I would respectfully say to you, both gentlemen, that, and ask first, do you work in public schools, either one of you?
No.
Okay. I would say to you that if you worked in public schools in this day and age, your attitude and your belief about reasonable suspicion, reasonable cause for searching would be very different. Now, I'm not a worldly guy, and my realm of experience hasn't gone perhaps 25 miles from where we're sitting. But I was in the aftercare of a kid who shot himself in a guidance office in a local school. And I will tell you that guidance counselor was in the midst of searching that student. He had a loaded gun in his pocket. Now, I say that not to be dramatic, but I say that to tell you that reasonable cause is an essential element of who we are and what we do. It is no longer, as all of us would agree, safe in the schoolhouse. And if we, as an administrative team or a board, eliminate reasonable cause
for any search, we've given up a tremendous opportunity to save lives. And I would urge you to understand, you can laugh about that, but I will tell you right now, until you live in our shoes, and until you experience some of the concerns we have, you won't understand it. This is far more than just simply making this a simple request, as you've stated. We're talking about the safety of children and adults. So I would ask the board, that when we hear the questions posed, I would tell you that there has been an administrative directive, as I said. Mr. O'Malley, you're in possession of that, am I right?
Yes, I am.
Have we had a conversation about strip searches? Mr. O'Malley, yes?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Reinhardt.
Well, I want to, if you will, just wait a minute.
Certainly.
Please. Because I want this to be understood, that since the concern was expressed, I talked to others and I addressed it. But I will never, as a superintendent, advocate for the loss of reasonable cause for administrators to search. Not in this day and age. Won't happen.
Very much agree. For those of you who know me, I'm John Ravelli. I'm in charge of security for the school district. Gentlemen, I certainly understand your concerns. And, they're valid. Okay? Mr. Freund, I can tell you from a legal standpoint, and I certainly don't mean to draw from your experience, sir, but he's on point with what he's saying from a legal perspective as far as search and seizure. What Mr. Reinhardt's trying to explain is from a policy standpoint for any agency, whether it be the school district, whether it be a law enforcement agency, it is almost ridiculous to add qualifiers into your policy such as always or never. You don't do that. You do not paint yourself into a corner. As far as a search goes, certainly we've heard descriptions of how we would arrive at levels to undertake or commence with the search. Reasonable suspicion was thrown out there. Certainly reasonable suspicion is your lowest level to predicate any type of search. Basically, that's most associated with the Terry versus Ohio decision when they're referring to a pat-down or a pat-and-frisk search. And certainly any of the searches that the short period of time that I've been with the school district that I have witnessed, that I have read about in incident reports, or that I've been asked to even undertake myself have been of that nature, staying with the reasonable suspicion standard. Now, in being asked to review our policy, and particularly when it pertains to strip searches, the first thing when I was hit with that, my thought was, oh my God, that would be an extreme situation. And to reach that situation, we would have already reached the level of probable cause. And I know I'm kind of, it sounds like legal double talk, but certainly the burden of proof beyond, from reasonable suspicion to probable cause, you've reached probable cause, you now have basically either the ability to petition district justice for either a search warrant or an arrest warrant. You've reached that level of criminality in the event you're dealing with. So certainly I would agree with both you gentlemen. In dealt with correctly, potentially we could eliminate or mitigate most of the exigent circumstances that would be involved with something like that. Again, the incident Mr. Reinhardt points to, I would say in a perfect world we could mitigate most of it. However, the example he uses, not all of it. And again, that's why I would caution the use of any qualifiers as far as always or nevers. But I could guarantee you that the threshold of probable cause certainly would need to be reached and achieved prior to any step being taken for such an intrusive search. and it would be for, without a doubt, the greater well-being, welfare, and safety of that particular student, the students in the building, the faculty and staff. And that's the only way we'd reach that level. So I hope that gives you two gentlemen just a little bit of peace of mind. Any questions or concerns as far as, or for me at this point?
If they'll give me some time, I have one.
To them.
What's that? If I can have a minute, I have one concern. I appreciate you hearing this, and I understand your directive. I too should hope that everybody's stomach is turned by the thought of having to do that. It must be a very uncomfortable situation if it does reach that level. But a directive is no more law or policy than a presidential executive order on a national level. You get a scummy lawyer like John Carroll, and I have no problem saying that on the record, will shred that directive to pieces because it's not a written policy and it's not legally binding. It's just you sending a memo saying, I don't want this to happen. And I'm sure that most of the people in the district wouldn't want it to happen. I'm talking about the odd situation or the off chance that we have a rogue teacher or administrator that has his eyes on a student, boy or girl, and wants to use it as an excuse to molest a child. That's what I'm talking about. Not the situations that Mr. O'Malley or that you were talking about with the revolver. I'm talking about the odd chance that a teacher might want to use it to his advantage. It's an ambiguous policy, and then get a lawyer who's going to get him off on a technicality because he can shred that directive and that ambiguous policy. If it's buttoned down and tightened up, like Mr. Freund has recommended, maybe a little bit more so than what Mr. O'Malley said, but maybe not quite as exact as what I said, I think we'd probably come to an agreement that most parents would accept. So that's what we're asking for. Please just make sure it's a policy that's going to raise that bar and raise that threshold, that a child's Fourth Amendment rights are not going to be violated, that the parents will be called, and that the police will conduct such a search if it reaches that level.
Thank you.
And if I may, one quick additional comment, and that is on the example of the young man who shot himself. I find it extremely difficult to believe that in that situation he would have to be stripped in order to be disarmed. And if that were the case, and I were in your shoes, I certainly would not want one of my administrators attempting to disarm an armed individual who has just pulled the trigger. I'd want a professional to deal with that situation. Thank you.
Well, I know that speaking on behalf of administrators, we would all feel that same way. But unfortunately, the circumstances occur where we don't have police available with us at the right time. And as far as that example, what I was referring to, and I'll clarify it, the guidance counselor had asked the young man to empty his pockets and began a search because he was very concerned that he was armed. And the boy did so. I think it was actually even before we may have had police officers in the district at that time. The boy did so, and I guess I walked away from that as saying, sadly the boy hurt himself and survived. However, that could have appeared at any time during that school day and could have been, it happened in a guidance office, could have happened in front of 300 kids, traumatized them for the rest of their lives. There's no easy answer to it. I understand your point, I really do. But you have to look at it from our point too, and I would appreciate if you could do that. That reasonable cause is real important for us. And we'll try and build this so that I think you're more comfortable with it. I really will. We'll try. See what we do.
Let me just say quickly that the policy the proposed policy that we have here, I think attempts at least to strike the balance that has been talked about here, and in my view goes further with regard to strip searches than any other policy I've seen in terms of creating barriers and assuredness that it is before a strip search would be conducted that all other possible avenues have been exhausted and that the degree of danger is overrides any other consideration. So we tried to do that. We'll see whether or not the board agrees.
Right.
Other districts do have policy. Saucon Valley, Allentown, and I think it's either Whitehall or Salisbury.
We'll take a look at those and read those and try and use that.
This comes from those policies, but I've made it even stronger. This comes from those
And that would
policies.
make us very happy.
Once again, let me throw out there that I'm just going to put out there. Thank you to our two gentlemen who made sure that their concerns were heard. I want to make sure that this is documented as an initial conversation. There is nothing official at this point. So that should be very clear between behind this table and out in the public as well. This is not something that is yet set in stone, and this is something that a lot of research and a lot of time, and I would even go as far as to say a lot of lost sleep and lost time has gone into this because of its importance. So as a board collective and as a public, I am going to make that public plea that we work in a cohesive manner to make sure that everybody gets on the same page and that we end with a result that is favorable to our community, our administrators, our teachers, and our students. With that being said, is there anybody else from the public who would like to make a comment on our policy agenda this evening? Seeing none, at this point, this is a continued conversation over to next month's committee meeting where we will revisit what we talked about this evening. Thank you.
Miscellaneous comments, anything miscellaneous?
Yep. I'm sorry Frank's not here to hear this, but as far as the resolution for the community college, I'd just like to say some things. I think most of us have pretty much looked at the budget, and we also heard the presentation for the budget. And I missed the explanation of the shortage for the library and how it's affecting as far as that part of it, and wanting to use the shortage with the $48,000 for the community college for that. And I think it would be a disservice to the community college to penalize them for whatever that error is. I'm sure for those of us who have gone to Easton, the stigma that used to go along with the community college and the comparison to what it is now, what's been built, I think has come a great distance. And so I'd hate to see that money being taken away from the college. There's many things that offered now. You go there, you can transfer after 2 years to some of the main colleges around here that was never offered before. So I just want to put it out there for that.
Thank you, and I think we're going to make sure everybody has that budget again, and we're hoping that everyone from the board can review it, and we're going to push that to March meeting, so we'll have time to relook at that. But thank you, Jody, for that. Saying that, is there anyone from the public to be heard on non-agenda items? Seeing none, I'd like to say we can adjourn this meeting. 8:47. Motion? Second? All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Adjourned.